good evening or good afternoon, depending on what side of the pond you're on, and welcome to a constructively critical episode of Across the Pitch. My name is Phil Kennedy, and I'm here with my co-host Tony Robinson, where I think at first on Saturday we had joked that we were just going to call this episode cheesed off because the result on Saturday, it wasn't what we were looking for. We went into that match, a home match against MK Dons. It was really a 6-point match for us. And not only did we not get 3 points, we didn't get any points. We didn't even get any goals scored. So it was very disappointing to say the least. We've now seen ourselves fall into the relegation area in 21st position. That being said, all is not lost. There is still a good portion of the season left to play. I believe 13 matches still to go. We do have a game in hand on many of the teams that are directly above us in the table. That being said, we also have some very, very difficult matches. So, I mean, this is going to be a tough road. But, Tony, let's start off by talking about on Saturday, after the MK Dons match ended, what were your initial first thoughts after that match?
Well, I was very, very disappointed and upset. Emotional to the point where I wouldn't have wanted to talk about this in a podcast forum. I think simply because, again, we have the expectations of a victory. I personally had the expectations that you'll set them higher because we're playing a team that. Although change managers and have got to win, I thought that it's a match that we could win and we should have won. And just the way they played in the first half, it reminded me a lot of the Lincoln match a month or so or two earlier, where we lost at home 3-0, and where the players, everybody seemed to have an off game. And I saw a lot of that in the first half. There's a lot of reasons for it, why they didn't perform well. But like you said, there's and this is what's been pointed out on some social media. There's still 30 points to be played for. We are still actually in control of our own destiny with that game in hand. Granted, that game in hand is against Plymouth, but at this point, we go into that match tied. I mean, if the match ends as it starts, we get a point out of it. So we have something to gain from the match. I think, as I say, there's a lot of reasons. John Coleman mentioned in his post-match about not having the rhythm, and I think I've mentioned this before, but in a different context, is the chemistry. I haven't seen the chemistry this season to the extent I have in the past, and I think a lot of that, Phil, has got to come down to another thing John Coleman said is that the inconsistency in his lineups. If you have to, you are dictated by injuries and suspensions. You can't put out the same lineup. You can't build rhythm or chemistry, and you're treading water, aren't you? And I think that's where we're at.
Well, exactly. I mean, I think that you've hit the nail on the head there, is that now we're starting to get a little healthier. and bring guys back into the lineup. But let's just take, for example, it was very exciting to get Michael Nottingham back. But how many of our guys have actually played with Michael Nottingham to be able to build any kind of a, know where he's going to play the ball, to know, where you expect him to be? I mean, all of that takes a few matches. And I think that's, where we're at, is we haven't really been able to build a consistent game plan, because week to week with the injuries and the suspensions, you don't have the same 10 guys in. And that's something that, Accrington has really been known for in the past, is that consistency in the lineup. So, I mean, that's definitely one of the differences this year. That being said, one of my main concerns, or I guess I would say, I guess my main criticism of the club as a whole, and I'm not naming any names, I'm not picking anybody out, because this is something that I'm seeing just team wide, is that we're not playing smart football. We're making too many unforced mistakes. We're taking bad fouls. And then when we get into the final third, instead of working for a good shot, you have too many guys trying to be the hero, firing the ball from 30 yards out. I mean, there's just so many things. When MK Dons, they got their goal early, and my observation is they got their goal early, and then after that, they really played a very smart and conservative game plan. And, for instance, they weren't taking chances. They would play the ball out of bounds, as opposed to, taking a chance. And to me, that's the kind of football that Accrington Stanley is known for, and Accrington Stanley has played in years past. And I felt like I was sitting there watching MK Dons play the strategy that we should be playing.
Well, yeah, you made a couple of good points there, and I think one of the things, and I'm not in any way, shape, or form trying to put myself in a position of a League One manager, but I do have my coaching certificates for ice hockey at the intermediate level, and coached up to the youth level, and one of the things that I learned during that is that you've got to execute, and some of the players aren't sort of executing their roles the way that they should be and they could do. And the other thing is the mental errors. They're making too many mental errors and being indecisive and making taking high risk chances, and I think, or low risk chances, I should say, because if you look at as a player and you've got the option to make a risk play that's low risk, you've got to take that, because if you build on those low risk opportunities, then you will get the chance for goals. But if you constantly try and make that high risk move, your percentage of failure is very high. So yeah, the team that makes the fewest mistakes and executes the best is going to win, and that because of the inconsistency of players, suspensions and injuries, we're not executing the way we should, and we're making the mistakes that we shouldn't, and that all boils down to poor results.
Yeah, Tony, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head in so many places there. I mean, every point that you made was just spot on. And so I guess my question would be here is, what's different this year than in years past. I mean, what I've seen is in years past, it seemed like, and I hate to say this, but it seemed like in years past, we always had a team full of guys that were playing for the badge on the front of the shirt. And I just feel like this year I see more guys out there that are playing for the name on the back of their shirt. And is this a situation, do you think, where, players are maybe just getting bad advice from agents? I mean, has the Dion Charles situation, is that something that soured the changing room and has kind of never really gone away? We don't really know what's going on with Toby Savin. Obviously, something happened there. Hopefully, it's been patched up. Is there a divide in the locker room between the older players and the newer players? I mean, just something seems off, and I can't put my finger on what it is.
Well, I don't. I've got to disagree with you on a few things you said there, Phil. And I don't think the dressing room has been lost. I think that because of injuries, players are in and out of that dressing room, and you don't sort of get that that team chemistry that builds up. And they started right from the beginning of the season, where right off the bat, Hamilton's out and J. Rich Pagaloo is gone. Your back liner is already gone. I mean, and I'm not around the club like a lot of people are, but I did have a chance to spend some time at a training session in the fall when I was there. And I didn't see any. I mean, it was just a one instance, but I didn't see any examples of anything divided. And I think there's still. I still think they're playing for the crest on the front, Phil. I do honestly believe that. I think what they're doing, a lot of players playing when they get in, they're playing to use a ice hockey expression, they're holding the stick too tight, and that was always meant that the player was just a little wound up and just not loose and relaxed, and they're just sort of a little tense. When you hold that stick too tight, you can't make the plays like you should do, and I get a sense that the player doesn't want to be the one that makes the mistake, because when you're at home and you give up that first goal and make the mistake, and there was a couple of players, I mean, we give that player too much room coming in off the wing, and I've seen that in the past, and that's and they're not coached to do that. They're coached to obviously to close that gap. It's just sometimes the mental error the player makes on the pitch at the time. But when a player feels that a mistake they've made might have contributed to a goal, and the way the season has gone, the crowd, the enthusiasm, or the just sucks out of the crowd. I mean, the Clayton end and everything just went sort of dead, and it was very, very quiet in the Wham Stadium, and that's not the way it should be, because the fans feed off the players, and the players, if they get a quiet crowd, feed off of that. So, but the players have to give that effort and go full out, and then the crowd will feed off of that, and then they feed off each other at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything that you say there makes a lot of sense. I think that, obviously with the relegation battle there's a tremendous amount of pressure. And I think that there is that, like you said, there is that stress not to be the guy that makes that mistake. And like you said, I think that when you get into that situation, then you start playing tight. And when you're playing tight, then that's when when even more mistakes start to happen. So I think that's absolutely a great point of what we might be seeing here. And that kind of feeds into what I was getting at, is that I think that maybe I see a lot of guys wanting to try to be the hero, if you will. And I think, that may be part of the issue as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know what you're saying is that somebody wants to take it upon themselves to lift and carry the team, which is not a bad thing. But if it goes back to the problem of if it's a very high risk, then, and you've got a better chance if you give it off to somebody or try and get the open player. We're just giving up the ball too much, and we've got to cut those mental errors down. And the positioning, and the positioning of players has a lot to do with the inconsistency in the lineup. And I mean, we look at times, we can all remember when people were critical of John Coleman for not making substitutes because he had an 11 players they were winning and he wouldn't, and people were complaining, they're not giving other guys a chance. And now that they are putting players on at that 60, 65 minute mark to stir things up. The coaching staff they're being criticized again. And one of the things that I stayed off social media for a little bit that Saturday, but when you go back on Sunday, reading things and hearing stuff, and to hear that the players were being abused verbally, when they were going off the pitch, that's just, I mean, that's not on. And you know what I mean? I'll tell you one thing. When I was working in insurance business as a claims adjuster and I was handling claims, and I didn't want people coming down to my office, and if I made a mistake, and start yelling and screaming at me for having a bad day, that's not going to, that's not going to help. And I know people are entitled to have an opinion and are entitled to criticize. I don't object to that. What I object to is the way it's done. And if it becomes abusive and personal, then that's not on. But there's
it's the difference between constructive criticism and just being a jerk.
Yeah, and I think we've got, and this is, and I've said this I put this on social media, and to me, there is a difference between a fan and a supporter. A fan is somebody who could like it from afar, or is sort of, oh yeah, I'm a fan of Stanley. A supporter is somebody to me who follows the team through highs and lows. You can't always, when you're a team in the third tier on a small budget, you're going to have a lot of downs. But as a supporter, you've got to ride through those, because at some point there's going to be a positive. And that's what, as a supporter, that's what you support your team for. And it's easy to support a team or be a fan of a team when they're winning. A real test of a supporter is how they support the boys and the coaching staff when times are tough. And if you're, and that includes being critical, but in a constructive way, as you said in the opening remarks.
Well, it's like this. I mean, when you look at how the season is unfolding, obviously it's not the way that anybody wanted it to go. But when you look at the things that people are criticizing, I think that a vast majority of things are problems that A, there may not be a better answer to, and B, it just really might not quite be anybody's fault. And I think that's the thing is I think that everybody wants to look for a place to place blame in certain situations. And in certain situations, there's not necessarily always blame to be placed. Sometimes that's just how things are.
Yep.
The other thing is that I think that there's a lot of folks that either want to criticize something, and then you say, all right, well, I don't necessarily think you don't have a point there, but what do you suggest we do instead? And they don't usually have a lot of answers to that. And then I just think that there's a vast misunderstanding of finances and what Accrington Stanley is able to do. I mean, one thing that I hear a lot is, why didn't we sign more guys in January? And now I know for a fact that we were doing everything we could possibly do. We were on the horn until the 11th hour, the last minute, trying to bring guys in. But at the end of the day, you can only bring guys in if it's going to make sense for you financially. And I just think that there's, for instance, there was this big push to bring in Cole Stockton. And from what I understand, that was going to be a 6-figure transfer fee. And, folks are saying, well, okay, well, we just made all of that money in the FA Cup. Great. So we spend that money on Cole Stockton. If Cole Stockton comes in, scores 10 goals, helps us stay up in League One, fantastic. It was a great move. But anything short of him coming in, scoring 10-plus goals late in the season and helping us stay up, it wouldn't be money well spent, because, say he comes in, he gets hurt, he comes in, just doesn't perform, or even he comes in and plays relatively well, but it still isn't enough for us to stay up. Then next year we're in League Two. We've put all of this money into a player that probably isn't going to stay around more than 1 year.
Yeah, I think and Andy said this, and I agree. You can't, as a small club on a small budget, you can't mortgage the present for your future. You can't do that. I mean, we got to look at. Right now we've got John Coleman, Jimmy Bell, John Doolan. We've got the players are going to be the same. Things aren't going to change. John Coleman's not going anywhere, and Andy Holt's not going to fire him. So people who think any otherwise should just get rid of that notion, because it ain't happening.
It's just silly. There's no that's one of those questions where and not that I even think that there's the slightest merit to this. But if you fire John Coleman, who are you going to bring in? I mean, Alex Ferguson's not coming to Accrington.
Well, it doesn't make sense, because financially they're not going to be able to do that, because it's another financial burden. He's
under contract, so I mean, realistically, you're still going to be paying the current coaching staff. You'd be looking at something like player manager Seamus Keneally, because that's the only thing they could afford.
Yeah, I just think it's the facts is you've got a certain number of players now, and you've got the coaching staff, and if you get behind the coaching staff and the team, and support them and give them good support at the matches, that's the best we can do. And I know people might say, let's face it, we're a podcast. We're based in North America. 2 out of the 3 of us in North America, and Darren is in Accrington, goes to the matches. You and I both follow them on iFollow. So I think we are aware of the play on the pitch, and we're aware of what's going on. We do talk to people on the inside, so we have a good feeling. So I mean, I think when we give an opinion, I think it's based on. It is an opinion, but it's usually based on solid, credible information that we get. And so I think if people want to want to sort of criticize, saying, well, they don't, they don't come to the matches or whatever. I think we try and talk about the club in a honest manner. And yes, we are very supportive and positive, but when it comes times to say if there's something not working right, I think we owe it to people to say it, but do it, like you say, constructively, because you don't get better unless you get feedback, and feedback can come in lots of shapes and forms. But if it's negative feedback, it doesn't help anybody. And I just think, we have to get behind the team, and it goes back to and I think Darren put a video on there a little while ago. Part of it was a lot of the video was about the history of the club in regarding his book of 50 years of Accrington Stanley, and I mean, I started going on a regular basis, flying back over in 2012, and the difference that we've seen from 2012 to the present day is so immense. We were poor facilities, just happy to be in League One, or League Two, I should say. We're a team that's been in League One. Sorry, I get my numbers mixed up. We're in League One now since 2018. And I think a lot of people think that we should be doing better, but every year that we do what we do in League One is an overachievement, and I think that has to be taken in consideration. And our expectations of winning this and winning that, I think we have to taper them and just say, look, we got to support the lads and surviving in League One.
I absolutely couldn't have said it better myself, Tony, because I mean, that's ultimately what we're here for. And as a show, we try to always be positive. I mean, that is our MO, if you will, is we are a positive show. We're here to support the team. We're here to tell about what a fantastic organization Accrington Stanley is, why we think it's the best club in the world, why we still think that.
We're talking about being sort of positive, and I think if we want to spread the word of the club, and which we have done in throughout the globe, we've gotten downloads all over the place, and we've covered that many times. But we wouldn't be increasing the fan base that we are if we were constantly being negative. But we do it in a positive way. But if we find something is wrong or it's not amiss, then we need to address it. And I think
that's exactly what I was going for, Tony. That's where I was going towards, is that we are going to be positive 95% of the time, but when it comes to be the time where things are going poorly, and right now things are going poorly, then we're not going to be credible if we sit here and say, oh, hey, we're 21st to the table. We don't have any wins in our past 4 matches, but hey, things are great and positive. We're not going to say that. We're going to say, we're not where we want to be right now. What do we need to do to support the team and help them get to be where they are? Because I mean, there's still matches left to be played. Nothing is done and dusted, as they say across the pond. And I think that if you look at things, like you said, Accrington Stanley, just by being in League One, even if we were to be relegated and be in League Two, based on the budget, just being in league football is an overachievement. And to me, what we have that is the best is with Andy Holt. He is a guy that builds for the future. And that's, to me, I think there's been a lot of criticism about, have we spent too much money on infrastructure and not enough on the playing staff? that is probably the silliest thing that I've ever heard, because so here's what I look at. Selfishly, if Andy Holt wanted to be selfish about it, he would say, okay, I'm going to splash some money at the club. I'm going to try and get as high as I can. Let's see if we can get up to the championship. We'll spend some money on players. But then, once my time is up, I'm out, and whatever. He has not done that. He has taken his money and he's spent it on making sure that when he leaves, that the club is in a better place. And that's just something that's so rare, because as humans, we tend to look at now, we tend to be about instant gratification. And whether we get relegated or not, Accrington Stanley, like you said, is in a far better place than it was when you first traveled over from Canada. It's in a far better place than it was when we started this show 4.5 years ago. And that's because of the investment that Andy Holt has made in making sure that this is a sustainable club going forward.
Yeah, and I think some of the, like we're talking about consistency. I mean, Harvey Rogers is going to be up because he picked up a 10th yellow. I mean, some of the fouls and yellow cards that players have picked up have been out of sheer frustration. And this is where, as a professional, you have to harness that energy, and I know it's easier said than done, because when you play a sport and if you get frustrated, you can lash out in some way, shape, or form, and that just adds, that compounds the problem. So I wouldn't be, and this is, again, we're going to have a different lineup on Tuesday night, but I think if this is a match against Plymouth where people's expectations are low, I think this might be an opportunity to try a different lineup, in the sense of maybe try a different combination up front. Maybe the midfield is a little different. I don't know how much they can do with that, but we've got more strikers available now than we had for quite a while. With Matt Lowe coming back, with Cody starting to see some game time. Aaron just seems to be just not getting the chances or converting them like he was earlier on. Maybe a mix up front to try it, but we'll see. And as far as the goaltending situation, we'll just have to see how it plays out. But I'm confident with either one of the keepers in net, so I don't have a problem with that. And anything that goes on behind the scenes is between them and the club. Whoever puts on that shirt in between the posts will get my full support.
Oh, without a doubt. I think that at the end of the day, we have two class keepers, and either way, we're going to be in a good spot with either keeper in net. I do agree that I think maybe a shakeup in the lineup, just anything to try to get things going, that would be what I would suggest. And like you said, I mean, Plymouth, it's a match where we have low expectations. That being said, I mean, we had high expectations going into the MK Dons match. That didn't go how we expected. So maybe tonight, because that's we're recording this on Monday, but this will come out on Tuesday morning. So tonight, let's start the turnaround to the 2023 year, and who knows? Maybe we will get a result down in Devon.
If we get an effort for a complete 90 minutes from all 11 players on the pitch, then I'm
football.
Yeah, and then I'll be. If we lose, then you have to live with it. But if the effort is there and they convert and they create chances, then I'll look at it more positively. You've got to see the effort, and you've got to see cut out the mental mistakes, be disciplined, execute your role. By the way, that match is at Stanley. It's not in Devon tomorrow.
Oh, I'm sorry. My mistake.
No, I just remember that. But So anyway, we'll see what happens, and I hope the crowd and the Clayton end get behind the team or make some noise, because I know that does really mean a lot to the players. And if they get somebody has got to start first, so maybe the players will put in the effort and get a goal, and the Clayton end will kick in, or vice versa. But yeah, let's be positive, and 30 points to play for. We've three teams really that we really need to worry about. Morecambe behind us. We've got games in hand on them. Oxford are not playing well. MK Dons could drop off. I mean, they got 2 wins in a row, but that doesn't guarantee anything. So I think there's an excellent chance that we get out of this thing, because we've only got to catch one.
In Cambridge are in worse form than we are. So
we've only got to catch one of those 2 teams. So having said that, we've got a lot to play for. So on Stanley, on Phil.
On Stanley, on. Cheers, Tony.
Cheers, Phil.